If you lost your job tomorrow, how long could you survive before panic sets in? Having money isn't about just income, it's about retaining control of cash flow. At the end of the day, we're going to walk through a couple different breakdowns of questions perhaps people don't normally ask themselves or don't even ask their partners, their significant others. There's plenty of people that we've come across that don't even share bank accounts. They're married. They don't discuss when they're flying or traveling. They just spend money without actually understanding where it's going. We're going to talk about the difference between being rich and being solvent. The real definition of wealth isn't necessarily talking about how much money you have in your bank account, but really opening up time for you to have the freedom to do what you'd like. We're going to walk you through some money traps that most people often experience over the course of any given year, day, week, or month. And lastly, we're going to discuss some of those educational tactics that our parents or grandparents taught us about money that are actually causing issues today, holding you back from growing into the goals that you're trying to achieve. Hey everyone, Harrison George here with the Harrison George team, and we help people master money through smarter mortgages and real financial strategy. Let's get into it. All right, so let's talk about some things that are pretty difficult to discuss, whether you're with your significant other, your friends, your family, or in many instances, just yourself. There's the saying, you don't know what you don't know until you know. And in many instances, what you don't know, you often pay the price for if we're talking about financial investments. I want to try and provide people with the information so that they can know without experiencing the detriment of losing money. Now, it's not something that everybody's going to want to hear. It's not something that everybody's going to even agree with. And that's totally okay. In fact, that's actually your right. But we're going to discuss, hey, why it may not make sense to put money into a CD. Does it make sense to put money elsewhere, to diversify my funds? It doesn't make sense, in my opinion, to start putting your money directly into a CD in the stock market and focusing on equities when there are other investments that, coupled with those investments, are going to provide you with a safer outcome of your funds. For example, my wife and I were discussing this just the other day. Essentially, individuals who have only focused on putting their money in the stock market 10, 15, 20 years ago, when they were wanting to retire 15, 20 years ago, may have experienced a major drop in their assets in those invested accounts if they were only focused on that one asset class. And in reality, that one asset class did take a tank. Those individuals now, 70, 75, 80, we are discussing tactics on how they can get out of working when they were intending to retire. You hear it all the time. Oh, I lost my, in 2008. Or, oh, COVID really took a number on me. I had to go through a foreclosure, or I needed to put my loan into forbearance and I didn't do it right and I missed a mortgage payment. There's all these things that just happen because people didn't know what they didn't know. Now, what does that mean in terms of how to have money? How to have money isn't just hey, this person that's a professional is telling me that I should do that, and now I'm going to listen to them because so-and-so, Johnny down the street who's rich, uses the same person. I personally believe when discussing about professionals, I think that it goes down the path of left or right. The path of left is saying, great, I want to help educate this person. I want them to understand where their money's going, why their money's going there, and that whether it gets rocky in the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, that here's the game plan and here's what we're looking for. Or the other group that just says, hey, we're doing this because this is what the indicators tell us to do and what the data tells us to do. And I don't fully believe that. So my first suggestion in how to be rich is to educate yourself. It doesn't cost you anything other than maybe a couple of books, some time on the internet. I'm a huge proponent of education through YouTube. In fact, if you ask any of my friends and family, I would say that I graduated college because of YouTube. Now, that's not me indicating that you guys should just like and subscribe to this video, although if you want to, feel free to like and subscribe down below. This is me just saying there's so much information out there, and more information is coming out every day. It's hard to filter through the noise. It's hard to go through and say, well, this 10-minute video really should have been 30 seconds, and I get that. And that's going to be the difficult part, is that you're going to be fed a bunch of information. I think put in the energy, find out both sides of anything that you have a question about, make a decision for yourself. Again, you may not make the right decision all the time, but let's lower the percentage of making the wrong decision. Next, let's talk about the psychology of money. Money used to be something that was so simple. It was a cow, it was gold. It then moved over to a piece of paper. And now it moves over to the trust that it is something that it once was, this fiat money. The Fed has created this really crazy system where they can adjust numbers very uniquely and that have massive effects on the market. Really, it is just a tool that can be utilized to help advance your life. Now, what does that mean? I just said a bunch of mumbo jumbo. Realistically, the money that you have in your pocket is doing absolutely nothing. And in fact, you could argue that it's actually depreciating every second of every single day because the value of the dollar is going down, constantly going down. You can see that by the cost of gold going up because we benchmark everything off gold. Now, we're not on the gold standard. That's a whole other conversation. We can dive into that later. But at the end of the day, if your money is not doing anything, it's actually losing value. So to put your money into a checking and savings account that's earning you 0.5%, it feels as though that's amazing. And in many instances, like compared to other bank accounts, it's wonderful. But compared to inflation, you're essentially looking at a net zero. How can we take that money and put it into something that's growing us more than what the inflationary rate is, but giving us an opportunity to maybe even make a couple extra dollars, whether that's monthly cash flow or equity appreciation. Building the game plan and understanding what your goals are is going to be the highest priority. As if you don't know where you're going, how do you know how to get there? There are so many times where people just say, well, I want an investment property. And in fact, if you look at my desk right now, I have a sticker behind my computer that says how much by when. I'm trying to figure out how many rental properties I need before I turn X. How much in income passively do I need to be making before I turn X? And I'll back into it. Okay, well, I'm making numbers up here. If my credit cards cost me $7,000 a month and my other living expenses with my mortgage and everything else is another $3,000, to just live my life in this hypothetical scenario, I need $10,000 a month. Well, where can I get $10,000 a month? If I buy a rental property and that cash flows me $500 every single month, then I need 20 rental properties. Okay, well, where can I buy those rental properties? If I needed to buy 20 rental properties, if the properties that I'm looking at buying cost me $100,000 out of my pocket, then now I need to figure out that I need to get $2 million to put down on other homes to buy the properties to cash flow my bare minimum expenses. Now that doesn't mean $2 million today. It could mean buy a rental property. If you buy it in the right area and you're figuring out what your game plan is of, oh, this property's not going to cash flow me that great. Well, Harrison, that's not going towards my $10,000 a month goal. Yes, I get it. You're working over here. There's other income coming in. You buy a property that's going to appreciate maybe more than your rental income is going to be. Down the road, 3, 4, 5 years, you 1031 that property out. You can do a bunch of awesome things with cost segregation over here for real estate professionals. Again, there's other tactics that are part of the tax code that can help people advance. It's just educating yourself. If you take that rental income, if you take that equity from a 1031 exchange, if you bought a property for $400, now you sell it for $650, you take that difference and deploy it into other properties. Put $100,000 down on 2 or 3 other properties. Okay, well, I didn't have to earn that money. The property earned the money for me. It cost me absolutely nothing. Maybe a water heater here and there, maybe some work done on the property, landscaping and so on, but I made more in the long run. Just being okay with it not being what everyone tells you to do. Monthly cash flow is one way, equity appreciation is another way. Just deciding what you want to do is the biggest step in my opinion. Lastly, I think that the wealthy think differently. Poor people buy stuff, the middle class buys liabilities that look like assets, and the wealthy buy cash flow. Now, when I say cash flow, I'm not necessarily talking about monthly cash flow. We just talked about that a second ago. Really what I'm talking about is how can I let this money work for me? At the end of the day, your banking, and there's so much information about the infinite banking, velocity banking, that all-in-one loan that we've discussed plenty of times. But I think that what is most important is to figure out how you can get a grip on your life. My wife and I were having a discussion. Again, let's print our 12 months worth of bank statements. Let's look at it and let's use 4 highlighters. We're going to use green for things that we need: gas, groceries, electricity, so on and so forth. Yellow is those one things that we didn't necessarily need, but it's kind of those one-time expenses. Those, I need a new desk, or, oh, we need to put new carpet in because of the dogs ripping it up. Reds are those things that we absolutely do not need. We're talking about like a purse or something that is just kind of unnecessary and obviously really expensive. Ladies, I apologize. Those purses are a bag that hold things and are super expensive. So let's kind of do a little bit of recap. What we discussed is education. I think education is going to be the number one priority when discussing your financial future, how to have money. Educate yourselves. Then we're going to talk about your goals. Where do I want to be? How much by when? Then we're going to talk about where does that mean I need to put my money? Figuring out the path, even if it looks like this, is still a path. Obviously, everyone just assumes I go from here to here, but it doesn't work like that with everybody. People have different goals. People have different opportunities. People know different people. People are educated differently. All I'm saying is go down the niche of things that are important to you. Lastly, let's talk about how you get out of the mundaneness of needing to work to pay for your bills. If we can work and be diligent about spending our money, and we take that money that we are not spending and deploy it somewhere, let's let it work for you. So thank you guys very much for checking out this video. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us in the comments below. Again, like and subscribe. Peace.